Hello everybody, this is GeneralJannis, and today in Chaos Tactics I'm talking about the leaked core rules for the 10th edition and focusing on the major changes to 9th edition. So with no further ado, let's take a look. So today the 24th of May, so tomorrow we will have the last Chaos faction focus with 1000 Suns. But as I said in this video, looking at the core rules for the 10th edition, what we have seen leaked in various forums, and what are the major changes. Of course, as always with leaks, take everything with a pinch of salt. Maybe not everything is entirely correct, but this is what we have seen so far. So starting with army building and general rules, and then focusing on the changes for the command phase, movement, shooting, fighting. Fighting has quite a lot of interesting changes. And then also looking at the core stratagems. Many more core stratagems to choose from that could be important. And as we have seen before, the battle round now, that will not include a psychic phase and the morale phase. They have been basically baked into the other phases. Starting off with some general rules for your armies and squads, we have seen that that leaders is a new rule, so some of the characters are leaders and therefore they can join and attach to certain squads. That squad becomes basically their bodyguards, and normally you can't target the leader unless you have some special weapons, but normally you have to try to get out the attached squad before killing the leader, and the leader attaching to a squad will be adding some abilities to this squad. We also know that now the strategic reserves will be maximum 25% can be put in strategic reserves. And this will be 500 points for a 2000 point game. Units that can deep strike and such rules that allow the units to start at some other place, they will not count towards the strategic reserves limit. And the strategic reserves can arrive from the second battle round, 6 inches from any battlefield edge, but not in the enemy deployment. And from the third battle round, 6 inches from any edge, and as always, no closer than 9 inches from the enemy. Starting then with the command phase, the first part of the command phase will be as usual. You gain a command point, you can do certain abilities, etc. And then we have the whole new theme for the 10th edition, the Battleshock testing. That every unit that is below half strength must take a Battleshock test. If you have a one model unit like a vehicle, some big character, etc., this can also become a half strength if it goes below half its wounds, the starting wounds left. Therefore, also big units previously immune to morale now have to take Battleshock. You take the Battleshock test by rolling 2d6s and hitting your leadership or above. If you roll below, then the failed test has some bad consequences. Then objective control becomes 0, so they don't count as holding objectives. If a unit falls back that has been battle shocked, you must take a desperate escape test, so a lot of your models are risked to be slain. And the controlling player cannot use stratagems to target the unit that has battle shock. And as we have seen from various faction focus, a lot of abilities allow certain factions to make rerolls and improve the battle shock. Some of the armies, like for example Chaos Knights, they can inflict battle shocks, or their Tyranids can, with their army rules, maybe force every unit to take a battle shock test. So this battle shock will come as a main new thing in the game. Moving on to, let's say, fitting enough to the movement phase, we have moving the units and then reinforcements. Now there are some changes to the basic movement rules. Models can now move freely over other friendly models. So, for example, in this illustration, for example, the Plague Marines could go across the Poxwalkers. You don't have to move the Poxwalkers first out of the way, so the Plague Marines can go through. They can just run over them. Of course, they can't land over them. You can also have a Plague Bear Crawler, for example, crawling over infantry. Also, the infantry can go through vehicles. The only exception is that monsters' vehicles cannot move through other monsters and vehicles. Then they have to go around, or you have to, move away the front guy to get the other one to move. Also, some changes that models can now move over 2-inch terrain freely. with no penalty to their movement. So the things like Games Workshop's pipes, this you can then it will more become like something nice on the map and not really impact movement. And the flying models, also some changes here as illustrated in the picture. You have to measure the movement diagonally if you are moving up to the vertical, let's say from this Tyranid Prime flying on top of the building. Previously you could just move horizontally and then free on the vertical axis. Now you have to move diagonally. And one other interesting thing here, I'm not sure I'm really fond of this. Models can now fall back through enemy models, but then must take a desperate escape test. And then with a desperate escape test, on 1s to 2s for every model, the model is slain. But could this maybe be exploited to capture objectives if they are not battle shocked by failing, let's say, desperate escape test? Maybe they get also battle shock. I'm not sure about that. Otherwise, for some of the factions that are really fast, you could be, for example, in this example, we have a, let's say, fast Space Marine unit. They caught up into engagement with Plague Marines. They can maybe just fall back across and take an objective. So I don't know if I like this rule. Of course, it's very risky maneuver with a lot of high chance to lose a lot of models. Continuing with the shooting phase, as I said, the psychic phase is gone and baked in. The psychic abilities are triggering at different points in the game, and the witchfires become shooting attacks. So in the shooting, we have some new rules. The lone operative. Typically, some lone characters cannot be targeted outside of 12 inches. So there is no really look out, sir. The leaders that are joined the attached squads cannot be targeted normally. And some of the big units, like we see some big characters like Gilliman, he becomes a lone operative, but you cannot target him if you don't move closer than 12 inches. The big guns never tire here. We also see some changes here. The vehicles can still shoot in engagement range. This happens, of course, in your own shooting phase. Your own vehicle, if it's in engagement range, it can shoot its weapons to of course the unit that is in engagement with. And only pistols now don't get the minus hit to penalty though. So assault weapons previously, for example, it was only heavy weapons that had to pay with a penalty. Now all the weapons apart from pistols will be at -1 to hit. But another interesting rule is that enemy vehicles that are locked in engagement by friendly units can still be targeted by friendly units. So in this example here, if some poxwalkers have tied down an enemy tank, for example, then the Plague Scroller can still shoot at the tank and do some damage. And this can be quite strong, tying down some units. Of course, they can do some desperate escape or fall back, etc. But this opens up for some more possibilities. You don't have to fall back with your small infantry to allow some heavy shooting to occur. They also say that saving throws can never be improved by more than +1. This could be the case, for example, with all this dust combined with being in cover. Now they said that it can't be better than +1. And hit rolls and wood rolls cannot be improved by more than -1 or +1. This is basically as it is today. Then, just for the shooting, some of the weapon types, we have seen a lot of the new definitions in the previous faction focuses. Here listing some of the main changes. Let's say assault weapons don't get a penalty to hit after advancing. They just allow you to fire after advancing. Precision weapons, a new rule. This allows the bearer of a precision weapon to target an attached leader in a squad. So this can be really strong, especially as these leaders might not be. They can be sniped by precision weapons. The blast weapons have changed in the rules. You get previously that was like you would getting the maximum shots if the enemy had 10 or more models. Now for every 5 models in a squad that you're targeting, you get +1 attack, rounding down. So if you're shooting at something with 20, let's say 20 models, you would be getting 4 attacks as I read it right now. The heavy weapon also changes from previously heavy was if you moved, you had to pay a penalty to fire it. Now if you just stand still, you get +1 to hit. So heavy can be quite strong, especially if some faction focus will allow the units to count as becoming stationary. So heavy could be, instead of, let's say, a burden, to become something good if you stand still and shoot with it. And then the hazardous rule has been discussed quite a lot, because some of these psychic abilities, when you do a focused witched fire smite, it gets the hazardous keyword, or let's say plasma gun, if you overcharge, then it becomes hazardous. But this has changed how it works. After all the attacks with the hazardous weapons have been dealt with, then you roll 1 dice. On a 1, the firing model is slain, and if it's a character, then the character gets a hefty 3 wounds, and the attached unit cannot take the mortal wounds to save the leader. For example, the Plaguecaster that could join, let's assume he can join a unit of Plague Marines. He only has 4 wounds. If he casts some of his hazardous spells on a 1, he gets 3 wounds. He has only 1 wound left. So that's a bit dangerous, and it's not even D3 that you can be lucky and just get away with one wound. And then devastating wounds, as we saw, critical wounds typically required to have 6s to wound give mortal wounds instead of normal damage. Moving on from the shooting phase to the charge phase, the charge phase seems to be quite similar to the 9th edition. The charging unit must end in unit coherency, and then the main changes are the impact from the new movement rules. For example, ignoring the 2-inch high terrain, or if it's a flying unit, it has to, and if it's moving vertically also, you have to measure the diagonal distance for the charge. And the units that made the charge move get the charge bonus. Units, then they go in the fight first bracket. And then maybe to the phase with the most changes so far, the fight phase. Overall, some major changes, especially to piling in and consolidation. So first of all, we have only two categories described in the core rules. There is a fight first category. This includes, for example, as we saw, the units that made the charge. And then we have the remaining combats. There doesn't seem to become a rule of fighting last, so maybe they have removed this ability, but we have to see then if this is still an ability, for example, for the Foul Blightspawn. In both brackets, today it's different who chooses first in the different brackets, but here the non-phasing player selects first unit in each bracket. So for example, if we have a defending unit with fight first ability, it would be able to fight first before the charging unit. This is not the case today, and again the defender chooses the first unit to fight from the remaining combats that don't have fight first. And then maybe to the period with the most changes, we have the pile-in and the fighting. So first of all, the pile-in rules now say that you can move pile-in up to 3 inches, and this can only be done, this is specified now, only be done if the unit will end in engagement range. So if you charged an enemy unit with 2 units, and then the first one, let's say, kills them, then maybe the second unit will not be able to pile in and consolidate. The models must move closer to the closest enemy model, and this is really important. Now, if they can get to base contact, they must do so. So no more, let's say, making some crazy dancing moves with your units piling in to be able to go around a unit and let's say tag some other unit. If like illustrating here, the red units, if they can reach within 3 inches, they have to try to do to get into base to base contact. And then the models that can fight in these examples, this is also changed. Of course, models that are in engagement range with the enemy, engagement range is still 1 inch distance. And then the models that are in base contact with a friendly unit itself in base contact with the enemy. So no longer piling in ½ inches from the enemy and then a lot of units ½ inch from that unit. So you see in this example, all the green units fighting the blue unit, they are eligible to fight. The red units with the X cannot fight, because one of them is base contact with a unit that's not in base contact, and the other one is basically outside. So you need to come much closer now, and base contact will be much more important in the piling in. Also then for the fighting, you choose one melee weapon for all your attacks, so no longer allowing to split model attacks on different weapons. Basically from the new data sheets, we don't have the attack characteristic. This follows the weapon. You just have to select one of the weapons, and then you have some of the weapons are considered extra weapons. These are used in additions, like the malefic weapons of the Chaos Demons. Consolidation also receives some changes. So again, you can consolidate, move up to 3 inches, but this again can only be done if the unit will end up in engagement range, or if the unit can move towards a nearby objective and be in control range of that objective. So if you kill your enemy and you're stranded in the middle of nowhere, you can't move anywhere. If they can move closer to the closest enemy model, again, if they can get to base contact, they must do so. And models already base-to-base contact cannot move further. And in this example here, let's say that the red units killed the blue units. They attacked the blue unit, and they have to consolidate and come even closer to the blue models. If they kill the blue models, and maybe there is an objective marker close by, and one of them can reach inside the control area here, they can consolidate in that direction and steal an objective. But you have to be really close for this to happen. So moving into the core stratagems, as I said, many more stratagems to choose from, a bit more useful as the current core stratagems. So we have a stratagems key. The green ones, they can be used in either player's turn. The blue ones are in your own turn, and most of them are actually something that you can use in your opponent's turn. Starting with either player's turn, we have the command reroll, as we know it today, one command point to reroll a hit roll, wound roll, damage roll, advance roll, charge roll, desperate escape, or number of attacks. Not possible to use for Battleshock test here, as we can see. And then the counter-offensive for 2 command points is like the 9th edition, where you can break in and start to fight. And then the epic challenge. This is quite interesting. For 1 command point, a character model in engagement range of an enemy with an attached leader, then this character's melee weapons get precision to target the enemy leader. So this is quite strong. Again, attaching a leader to a unit would be keep him protected, but with the epic challenge, it's not so secure for some of the squishy characters to come into melee with some stronger, let's say, melee characters. And then the things we can do in our own turn, the insane bravery. For 1 command point, you can pass a failed Battleshock test, and it's quite nice. This is quite helpful. 1 command point, you roll to do your Battleshock test, and if you fail, you can select if you want to use the command point. This is a bit stronger than today, auto-passing the morale. The grenades, also a big change. No longer seem to be a weapon that you can use, but rather, if you have the grenade keyword, you can, for 1 command point, you can, within 8-inch range, you roll 6d6, and every 4+ give mortal wounds. This can be really strong. And again, some of these grenade units, probably Plague Marines, for example, would be able to do quite a lot of mortal wounds within 8 inches. And then we have the tank shock. This is also really strong, and for the probably very vehicle and tank heavy 10th edition, when a vehicle unit charges successfully, you can roll some dice according to the melee the weapon's strength, and you get +2 dice if the strength is higher than the enemy. Every 5+ is a mortal wound. This can maximum do 6 mortal wounds, but for example, some of these melee weapons we have seen for some of the big tanks, let's say knights, they have, let's say, strength 14 or something like this. You would be rolling a high number of dice, so this can be really strong for vehicles that already seem really strong in the 10th edition. Finally, we have some core stratagems that you can use defensively or a bit aggressively in your opponent's turn. The rapid ingress that we have seen some of the previews. For 1 command point, you can bring in unit from reserves, deep strike, etc. at the end of the opponent's movement phase. This can be quite strong instead of waiting to bring them back on your own. Again, the rules apply that they have to be more than 9 inches away, etc. And then Overwatch is quite different as we have today. After an enemy unit just makes a move or advance or fallbacks or charges, you can select to shoot with one eligible unit within 24 inches of that unit. You need 6s to hit. I don't know if it still will work with auto-hitting weapons. I would assume so, but this can be quite strong when an opponent just moves close to range to make a sure charge. You can still shoot them with auto-hit weapons. That could probably be really strong. Smoke screen, for one command point, you can select a unit with a smoke keyword that is being targeted. Then this unit gets benefit of cover and stealth. Stealth means that they are -1 to be hit, and you get an improved save roll. Go to ground. This is also quite nice. Infantry unit that is targeted. It gains 6+ invul save and cover. So this can be quite nice for some of your troops, maybe an objective you need to keep alive. And then heroic intervention also seems to be we don't seem to have the heroic intervention step in the rules. So this is now a stratagem. After the enemy finishes a charging move, a friendly unit within 6 inches can then countercharge that unit, and it doesn't benefit from any charge bonus here. So this is a bit changes to the heroic intervention. Reaching to the summary and final thoughts, we have seen some big changes in the core rules for the game. Removing the psychic phase is quite big, and morale phases from 9th edition. Leaders that can be attached to squads will be quite an interesting new mechanic. The Battleshock test, also entirely new mechanic, and making it first of all that a unit could be failing the Battleshocks multiple times. Normally in a normal game today, the unit risks to fail their morale only in a battle round where they took a lot of casualties. Here, when they come below strength, half strength, they will have to be taking the Battleshock every turn in the command phase. You can now move through your own models. That would be keeping some of the movement phase easier for you. Quite big changes for the piling and consolidation. You must come into base contact if possible. It's not possible to pile in or consolidate if you can't get to engagement range, and this base-to-base contact will, in my opinion, remove some of this bit wonky feeling game where you are trying to move around and do some shenanigans that don't feel like what some aggressive warriors would do in the heat of battle. Many new core stratagems, as we have seen. Many seem quite useful. Of course, we will not have so much command point as I understand it for the new edition. And we'll see how everything will play out when we get full access to all rules. So this concludes the video. What do you think about the new rules? Let me know in the comments. And with these words, GeneralJannis signing out. Stay safe out there, and bye-bye.